Hey, folks, it's Dave here in Studio B. And this is my new favorite hat, by the way. I love this Brewers hat. I picked that up over the holidays. I think I got it off of eBay or something like that. But I always loved this hat. So I says, when I'm streaming the baseball games, I like to wear a different hat, especially if it's a team I'm playing. So I got my favorite hat on. But anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about Mystique. And this is something that kind of come up the last couple of days with me personally. Okay. I've had some epiphanies, if you will. And so I'm going to go here to the Merriam Webster definition of mystique. And it says it's an air or attitude of mystery and reverence developing around something or someone. That is what mystique is. And why I say that is I've gone down some sports history rabbit holes in the last few weeks. Okay. And I guess some music rabbit holes as well after reading the Getty Lee book. And I've learned a lot of things about the past. Now, if you know me and you listen to the show and you follow the channel, you know that I enjoy spending more time in the past than in the present. That's where I enjoyed my music. That's where I enjoyed my sports. I was a lot healthier. I was a lot younger in the whole bit. So I enjoy spending time in the past with things. And there's a mystique about the past. Okay. As Michael stops by. Hi, Michael. He's still doing his History Maker baseball games. I've been kind of following along a little bit. And David C stops by and he loves the hat. Yes, I love the hat too. Let's face it, there's a mystique about, let's call it our sports past. Okay. And I got all these banners behind me, which I hung up today. Why did some of these teams stink? Why were some of these teams unbeatable? Why did some of these teams move? Why did some of these teams, change anything? Why aren't they still where they are, the same logo? And when you start going down those rabbit holes and looking at these things, what was the line from the Planet of the Apes? You might not like what you find. That's kind of where we are right now. As Sportsman Z comes by, thanks for coming on the show the other day, Sportsman Z. It was great having you on. I was watching some of your Strat hockey video the other day too. That was pretty good. John from the DFW coming by, and Arnold Hunter as well. How are me and my family? Well, we're settling in. We got snow coming tonight, our first snow of the year, so we're kind of settled in tonight. I was supposed to do a game tonight, but they didn't get it set up in time, so I'm home tonight. Anyway, so a couple things have happened already as I talk about Mystique. One was Ron got me the hockey news for Christmas, which comes with I don't want to say free because you're paying for it, but what's included is access to the online archive of every hockey news edition ever. And what's great is you go there and you log in and it's the video I did the other day. You call up the actual magazine. They're all scanned in and they're all that tan paper look to it. They look terrible. Now the newer ones are better because there's more color and a little bit more white in them. But going back to the 70s, it's that tan papery look, that sepia look to it. And you zoom right in and you can read the articles from the scan, And so that's what I've been doing and I've been enjoying it. And I'm learning a lot about hockey in the 70s when I grew up. I've also found a new channel on YouTube. I think it's called All Sports History or something like that. It come up in my feed and it's like, whatever happened to the Quebec Nordiques and whatever happened to the Hartford Whalers and whatever happened to the Seattle Pilots? And I've been watching all these videos and a lot of holes and a lot of gaps in my sports history knowledge have been getting filled in. And I don't know if they're for the better or not because I'm finding out some reasons behind things and the mystique is going away on a lot of things. And I almost wish I left the past buried and just stuck with the memories I had of it. Okay. And I'm going to explain why. So, one of the things I like to do is play bad teams. Okay. I like to play them. Buccaneers. I like to play the Seals, I like to play those teams there. And when you go back and you look at the history of some of these bad teams and why they are bad, I mean, back then you thought they were just bad. But when you follow the history of it and you learn about why they became bad, it takes away the mystique of it, and it almost spoils it, if that makes any sense. It's almost like a spoiler of what happened. And the one that tipped it over last night is Sweetest Jeff comes by. Thanks for coming by. And Marlon says he likes to see the striper shirt back. Yep. Enjoying a lot of community during liver surgery recovery. Oh, well, I'm hoping you're doing better, Marlon. I really am. I know my wife's got some surgery coming up, and we're not looking forward to it at all, but we're holding out hope that she'll get through it and she'll recover. The good old days weren't always good, and the future ain't as bad as it seems, Billy Joel. That's kind of where I'm going with this, Jeff. So the final straw was last night. I had to work today, so I went to bed kind of early. When I go to bed, I listen to stuff. So I put on YouTube, and I stumbled on the Buffalo Braves. That's kind of like my adopted bad basketball team is the Buffalo Braves. And I learned a lot about the history of the Buffalo Braves. And if you know me, I played a season of them, probably one of their bad seasons, to see how bad they were and how many games they would lose. I just love the bottom teams for some reason. Well, I am now up to speed on the Buffalo Braves and why they were bad, and the mystique is gone. Okay, I don't know anything about the Buffalo Braves or why they were bad. Now I know, and now I almost don't want to play the Buffalo Braves anymore, because I was playing them because they were bad, and I would play against them and beat them up because I thought it was fun. Now I know why they were bad. The mystique is gone, and it's almost like kicking puppies at this point. When I play, because there was no way they could win. They weren't allowed to win. Like the Cleveland Spiders. When we had this guy right here. JT Hetrick, J. Thomas Hetrick on. We talked about the Spiders. I thought it was hilarious that the Spiders sucked and they were getting killed and they were the worst team ever. And then you find out why. And the mystique is gone. And it's not as fun anymore when you realize that it just wasn't guys that were playing bad. It's like they were sabotaged. The Spiders were absolutely sabotaged. And if they started to win, then they traded guys. And that's kind of what happened to the Braves. They were playing pretty well. And as Mr. Baseman comes by, thanks for coming by. And we're getting ready for snow tonight. So that's what we're doing over here. The Buffalo Braves are good and fun to watch, and they later traded McAdoo. Well, Randy, that's just kind of what I'm getting at. Is I learned a lot about the history of the Buffalo Braves. How they went into Buffalo, they were playing out of the odd, but they were going against the Sabres, the Buffalo Sabres, who had just started in '70, and there was a college basketball team that played out of there, and so they didn't have many Saturday nights free, so they had to play some games in Toronto. And otherwise, they were playing, I don't know, either afternoons or weeknights. So they couldn't get any good Saturday night gigs or whatever it was they were looking for at the odd. And the team was struggling. And the guy wanted to move the team, but he couldn't move the team because he was under a contract. Now, in the again, this is according to the video, so I don't know how accurate this is. So I'm gonna rely that this guy was telling the truth in the video. Is that they did have a clause in the contract that said if they got less than, I think it was like 5,000 season ticket holders or 5,000 attendance numbers, whatever the number was, if they didn't meet that, then they could get out of their contract with the odd in Buffalo. And so he purposely got rid of all the good guys so they would lose. Think Major League, the movie Major League, think that. And once I found that out, that the owner purposely did that so they would lower their numbers so they could move the team, it made it not fun anymore learning that. Knowing the fact that these poor guys were out there were supposed to lose. They weren't given a chance to win. If they won, they were punished, by trading away their best guy. So now playing as the Braves or against the Buffalo Braves in basketball games, it's to me, it's not going to be fun anymore. At least not right now. The mindset I'm in now that the mystique is gone, it's kind of a bummer. And yeah, as Alan comes by and says they had some really good players, McAdoo, McMillan, Hurd. They made terrible decisions, and they did that. They did that on purpose because they couldn't get any dates, they couldn't make any money, and they wanted to move, and they weren't allowed to move. So they said, okay, we'll get rid. We're gonna tank. If you won't let us move, then we're gonna sabotage ourselves. And they were decent for a while. McAdoo was great, and so the mystique is kind of gone with the Buffalo Braves. And I remember watching an interview with I think it was Ozzy Osbourne at the time, and it was in I want to think it was like the '90s or the 2000s. Okay, and he was you know out of it at the time during this interview, but he said that during the '70s and '80s there was a mystique with the bands. You didn't have MTV, you didn't have the internet, so the only times you saw anything about these bands was in like magazines and stuff. You'd get photos of them on stage, but there was no videos anywhere to be found. I think I was probably either out of high school or almost out of high school before I saw my first video of Van Halen. Okay. Because everything was just audio and then pictures in magazines. There was nowhere to go in the 70s and 80s to look at videos. I mean, there was no phones. There was no I think MTV was just coming around at the time, but my town didn't have cable. And Ozzy Osbourne put it the best. He goes, there was such a mystique with music back then. And now, what happened? You go to a show and it's like, everybody's recording. You get home that night and the whole show's on YouTube. And so there's no mystique anymore. There's no mystery. And again, if I read the definition of mystique, an air or attitude of mystery and reverence developing around something or someone. There's no more mystery around anything anymore. Everything is just out in the open. And in ways that's kind of good, so I can go home and watch the show that I went to. And maybe if I didn't get to the show, I can watch it on tape and I can see new bands or old bands or whatever. That's kind of fun. Interviews now with people's kind of neat. So, I mean, having the veil cast wide open and having, nobody behind the curtain anymore, in a way, it's kind of fun, but in a way, there's no mystique anymore. And that's kind of where I am now, going down these videos and reading hockey news and, books and magazines, and I'm learning about the past. And some of my memories of the past, I had no idea about. Like, for example, okay, and you got to laugh at this, but, the California Seals in the 70s, okay, I was just a wee kid, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever I was. And, I knew of the Seals. I'm like, boy, they're a bad team. They really stink. The Bruins always beat them. Why are the Seals so bad? And then they changed their name several times, and they had like 5 different uniforms, and then they were gone. And then I was like, wow, look at how many of the Seals are on in Cleveland, like Malosha's with the Seals and Maruk. And I was like, that is so weird that they all ended up with Cleveland. As a kid, and even into my adulthood, I didn't follow the progression that California went to Cleveland and then Cleveland merged with the North Stars. I didn't know that. And that's stuff that I learned as an adult with the internet and videos and books and and the whole bit. I didn't follow all that. When I go back to the 70s, like the Kansas City Scouts, oh, I didn't put the Scouts up, but the Kansas City Scouts, they're kind of my other favorite bad team from the 70s, right? And I know they weren't as bad as the Capitals, but why were the Scouts and the Capitals so bad? Why were they so bad? And then I read the book, Icing on the Plains, and I want to have that author on at some point too. But I read the book about the Kansas City Scouts. Well, they were set up for failure, and even I was reading one of the hockey news is from 1970, I think it was, right before Vancouver and Buffalo joined. And they were talking about how they were going to pick their teams. The NHL teams, all the teams in the league, could protect 15 skaters and 2 goalies. That's basically your starting lineup. Okay? 15 skaters. That's 3 full lines and your goalie and your backup goalie. Who does that leave? 4th line guys and minor league goalies. That's who Buffalo and Vancouver got to choose from. And then the same thing And I don't know about the Islanders and the Flames. I haven't read that yet. I don't. So my history on that is still very mystique. Let's say it's still very. It's a mystique. But reading about the Capitals and the Scouts and what they went through, they're the same thing. The teams protected everybody good, and they got a couple of scraps. And so a lot of guys didn't have NHL experience. And so they were grabbing minor league guys and young guys, and it's like there was no way that they could win. And so going back and playing these games on the table or on the PC and beating up on the Scouts and this, well, not so much the Seals, but the Scouts, it's like it's just the mystique is gone because I know why they were bad now. And it wasn't fair. It's not like they drafted a team and then blah, 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 and they just, whatever. These guys were bad because they were barely NHL players. And if you can keep your top 3 lines and your 2 best goalies, you haven't really lost anybody worth the value. How are these teams supposed to survive? Why would anybody want to come into the league like that? And even the WHA, as I think I was the hockey guy. I've been watching a lot of his stuff too, and he talked about what happened with the WHA when the Hartford, Winnipeg, Quebec, and Edmonton joined the NHL and how they got screwed. And we used to laugh about how bad the Winnipeg Jets were, and we called them the loser pig Jets. And the Quebec Nordiques could never make the playoffs. They were, out of the Adams Division teams, there was 5 teams, I think, and they were always the one that never made the playoffs. Well, I know why. They were robbed of all their guys. They were allowed to join the NHL, but they were robbed of everybody, and they had to start from scratch at the bottom. And so the mystique with that is gone too. We used to laugh again at, back, at the time, oh boy, the Jets stink and the Nordiques, boy, they're terrible, Now I know why. The mystique is gone, and I don't know if I like that or not. I really don't know. Let me go back to the chat room here. And Marlon says everybody loves the underdog. Well, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, Marlon, is everyone likes an underdog. However, some of these teams that I like to play as or against in my replays here on the channel, or even when I play by myself, I'm finding out why they were so bad, and it's beyond being an underdog at this point. It's set up for failure. It's almost like being sabotaged. When it's just like, there's no way you can succeed. No way at all. And that's what's not kind of fun. And David C says the Canisius College Golden Griffins was a team that had priority over the Braves, and owner was extremely cheap. Okay, yeah, so that's what. There was a basketball team, maybe that was it, And Michael says that the Braves came into the league with the Trailblazers and Cavaliers. See, I'm not up on my basketball history at all, but I'm slowly learning about some of the teams there. And the Braves are always ones like, boy, Buffalo. I see, I love my defunct teams that don't exist anymore, no matter what year it is. That's why I buy some old baseball seasons, because it's fun reading about the Chicago Whales and, the New York Giants and teams that just don't exist. They're just kind of fun to go back and play, because nowadays we don't have a lot of movement like we did, especially in the 70s. And so it's kind of fun seeing the old teams. But so I'm getting a little bit of basketball history, and the Braves, I was like, oh, these Braves, never heard of the Buffalo Braves. They're kind of cool. I don't know where they went, what happened to them really. But just the story of them, now that I know the story, the mystique is gone. And I knew the mystique about the Scouts a little bit. They were screwed and they couldn't really succeed. And I still play as them or against them from time to time. But even now, it's the veil's lifted, the curtain's open, and I can see everything that's going on. And I almost enjoyed not knowing. I did. I almost enjoyed not knowing. And David C says that crazy part of the story is in '78, the Braves own a swap. I did read that. He swapped franchises with the Celtics and then moved to San Diego. Yeah. And according to the video I saw, he wanted to move. The Celtics owner wanted to go to California. And the NBA says, no way the Celtics are leaving. They're not leaving Boston. So they did. They swapped franchises. And then so he took Buffalo to California. So I thought that was nuts. That's part of the story that was like, whoa, that was really weird. It really was. So now they went up to. I actually, you know, I had a San Diego Clippers pennant. I should have put up for this now because I was talking about the Braves. But yeah, so the mystique is gone with some of these things. You know, following all the players from the Seals to the Barons and how they ended up on the North Stars, and then somehow when the San Jose Sharks joined the NHL, that was kind of like the last payback for the North Stars and the Barons merging for some reason. And I didn't quite follow all that, but there was a punishment there. And I don't know if it was from the Minnesota franchise or the San Jose franchise, but they lost a couple of guys or a draft pick or something as payback for something that happened in the, you know, in the late 70s, early 80s. It was really kind of weird how that it was almost like a player to be named later, and here it is, you know, 10, 20 years later or whatever it was. So I'm learning about a lot of these things with some of the videos and books, especially the hockey news I'm reading. And it's almost bumming me out because I kind of enjoyed how I remember things, which is not knowing everything. And now that I'm wising up to what happened, I don't know if this makes any sense. If you're following what I'm saying, you know, not that I want to keep my head in the sand, so to speak, but now that I'm aware of a lot of how things happened, it's almost not as fun now playing against the bad teams because now I look at them, it's like, well, they're not a nameless, faceless identity anymore. You know, they're now. I know why. I'm looking at these guys going, I know why you're here, and you're supposed to lose, and it's taken away some of the fun of it, I think. And Jeff says he feels that mystique is gone now because of social media. Yeah, well, I think social media and internet and everything is like wide open now. Many celebrities give us a glimpse into their personal lives, which is kind of cool, but in a way, it does take away the mystery. Okay, so yeah, so you're understanding where I'm coming from is that, you know, it sometimes it's better not knowing because it makes you wonder, it makes you think, and then when you see how it works, it's oh, you know, okay, you know, it's you know, a little bit of so and so. You know, even the Getty Lee book, when he wrote, I can't believe how much drugs Rush did because that's something growing up. You know, you knew, you know, like Kiss was the party band, you know, and the Motley Crues, which I followed, and all those '80s metal bands. It was all just drinking and drugs and Aerosmith and the whole bit. But Rush was always the one that they used to laugh that Rush would go back to the dressing room and read books. And not that I thought these guys were choir boys by any means, but you know, when I read about how they did a lot of drugs on the road and you know, before and after events and the whole bit, I was kind of shocked. Again, you know, as a kid growing up, they were kind of idols of mine. I was like, oh, good that they're not your typical, you know, doing drugs, stumbling around type of people. They're like they're good musicians. They play, they write great songs, and they go back to the dressing room. They don't participate in any of the debauchery. Okay, that's kind of how my mystique of Rush was, and now that's all opened up with the Getty Lee book, and I'm like, it kind of shattered a few images I had of the band. Doesn't make me think any less of them. Okay, I mean that journey's fantastic, but I don't know if that this makes any sense. Randy, what do you got here? There's a lot of mystique about the ABA. You seldom got to see teams play, and several franchises were mismanaged. Yeah, yeah. I mean, back in the day, like I say, the WHA, the ABA, you know, there wasn't a lot of coverage of them. In fact, I purposely went back to the '70s, like early '72, and I was kind of following what the Hockey News was writing about the WHA, and they were real quiet about it till probably the fall of '72 when they started playing games, and they started to talk about it. And it wasn't I don't know if it was months or a year or so before like in the table of contents of the Hockey News, it lists all the teams. They had a little article about everybody, no matter how small it was. There's a blurb about every NHL team. Well, at some point under the NHL, they had all the WHA teams that they finally started to write about too. But it took a while to get there. And I really thought there was going to be a lot more coverage in the Hockey News about the WHA in '72, about the impact and what's going to happen. And I'm going back and I'm reading some of the articles, and I'm kind of surprised that they really kind of just they wrote a little bit about it. They didn't say it was good or bad. They didn't say it was going to fail or not fail. It just kind of there wasn't a lot. And I was like, this is a big deal. You got a whole new league starting. It's taking guys from the NHL to a different league. It's hurting some teams in the NHL. It affected, especially 72, 73. The dynamic of a bunch of teams changed. The Bruins lost Cheevers. That was a big deal because Cheevers was on top of his game. He was probably the best goalie in the WHA at the time. And so it's just kind of wild watching all the guys leave and how the Hockey News really, how they covered it, I guess, is kind of weird. And what was say? Michael says the most points scored by a team in the NBA quarter is 58. Scored in the fourth quarter by the Buffalo Braves at Boston in 72. Oh, that's interesting. That's a lot. That means you've taken probably at least 30 shots, right? I would think. Jeff comes by. Thanks for coming by, Jeff. And he says, I'm sure the beat reporters' relationships with the big teams was at risk if they mentioned this in the hockey. That's probably a good point because the NHL, especially back then, it was a good old boy network. Let's just call it what it was. It was a good old boy network, and almost like the NFL is today. And you got to protect the shield in the NFL today, and that's why, like when I listen to satellite radio, I like to listen to a lot of talk shows. Not so much the Boston stuff because the Patriots are bad and whatever. But when I listen to the national shows, if I put on the NFL network, I know that they might talk a little down about the NFL, but they really kind of tote the party line. But when you go to like CBS or Fox Sports or Mad Dog Radio or whatever, they'll criticize the league a lot more than the NFL channel. But it's still not terrible because that they don't want to have the NFL come down on them in the whole bit. But I can see how back in the 70s that they almost were like, well, we got to acknowledge the WHA, but we we have a pretty good relationship with the NHL. We don't want to wreck that by, saying how great the WHA is. So we'll cover it kind of a little bit. So that's a good point when you think about it that way. I like that. That's a good one. So Gandalf again, their relationship could be at risk. Yep. And what was weird too, Gandalf was, and I read some of the hockey news the other day. I was having some fun just kind of going back and reading it. And I go back and I read like some of the team previews. I was doing that like in the summer issues or the first issue before the season come out, September-ish, early October. It was like, here's some team previews and, here's who left and who came and what to expect. And even the worst teams in the league, they wouldn't talk bad about. For example, Kansas City and Washington in the fall of 74. And they're like, now neither team really drafted anybody with NHL experience. However, this rookie here, if Kansas City can sign Wilf Paymont, he's a guy that could keep that team competitive. Come on. It's a team full of minor leaguers and maybe a handful of old guys who, instead of retiring, went to an expansion team. And they're really trying to paint that picture, like paint it like it's a good picture. Like, oh yeah, don't worry, Scouts fans. If they can sign Wolf Paymont, they'll be pretty good. No, no, and even when I was reading about the Seals, it's like, well, the Seals, they're getting better. Dick Redmond, this and that, and the goaltender Milosh is pretty good. So there's a chance that they might finish in third place in the division. Oh no. So reading the articles and how they didn't really say what they wanted to say. They didn't say, this team's terrible. They'll be lucky to win 20 games. Good luck. They didn't do that. They really put a nice spin on pretty much every team. It really was. And Jeff says, I just recently know Strat has USFL seasons. That's interesting. See, I don't play much Strat on the table. I do have the PC game. I do enjoy it on the PC. So many stories of sabotaging teams in that league. Yeah, that's the other thing. All those leagues that come out in the 70s, those, rival leagues. What was the one I saw? Was it it wasn't the USFL, I don't think. I think it was the World Football League. Is that the one that was in the 70s? And they had the championship game and the guys weren't even paid for it. And the police showed up and was like going in the locker rooms, raiding the locker rooms, taking all the equipment back. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, seriously, they sending in riot police to go and steal shoulder pads and helmets. Is that what the police are there for? Is to go in and do your bidding like that? There was a whole weird thing about how they had the championship game. They weren't going to have it, and then they finally did have it, and they crowned a winner, and then the league folded, but the police showed up to steal all the equipment. Really? You're going to send in armed police to steal helmets back for the league? I mean, it was such a 70s thing. Like nowadays, the police don't even show up for a car accident. They can't be bothered. But they're going to show up with all their batons, with hundreds of them showing up and raiding the locker rooms to get the equipment back for the league. Come on. I always thought that was a stupid, stupid story. I was like, really? Really? Nothing better to do? But yeah, some of those old leagues, there was so many things. There really was. Demi, thanks for coming by. Hockey players were blue collar workers. Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. I remember my dad telling me stories about how Phil Esposito was like a window salesman or a Venetian blind salesman during the off season. These guys didn't make enough money to not work. They all had summer jobs. It really was. David C., I feel the same way for baseball before the 50s. The writers rode the train with the team and were around the players all the time. Yeah, so you can't. There's certain things that you can't say. Absolutely, because you're gonna, I wouldn't want to be sitting on a train with people writing about how bad they are. It's just, you do have to sugarcoat it. I did some writing for a hockey magazine back in the 90s, I think it was, and again, if you want to be a shock value and write crazy stuff, your reputation will pay for it, and so I tried to write either neutral stories or find something positive to write about, and whatever is what I used to do. But I didn't follow teams around too much. Every now and then I would, but yeah, you got to be careful about that stuff. But it was just funny, like I said, going back and reading the hockey news. It's like, I even saw a video on YouTube about the 76 or the 77 Buccaneers. And it talked about, boy, this team here, just a couple of players away, and if they could get healthy and get this guy squared away and the team could, they're all maturing at the same time. They made this sound like this team was going to win the division next year. And I guess you could do that with any team. You could just solely focus on the positives and the what ifs and the if this happens and then this happens, you know what I mean? And yeah, it is kind of funny reading that. And so they do the exact same thing. That is why I like the local guys on YouTube. Yeah, yeah. I do, like I say, I watch a lot of YouTube, some satellite radio. My local guys on here in the Boston area, they're I don't know. Sometimes they're homers, and sometimes they're just there for shock value. And it's just they create arguments to create the drama, and that they're doing it, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. P-Jet stopping by. Good to talk to P-Jet there. And yeah, so like I say, I going back to the old hockey news articles and reading about the teams and what happened. Oh, you know what's kind of neat too? You know what is really funny about going back and reading some of the articles about the hockey news is reading some of the commentaries and the opinions. Okay, now whether it's the fan forum or whether it's the writers, but they were talking about Buffalo, Vancouver when they joined, and how Buffalo got Gilbert Perreault, and somebody was talking about Vancouver, and they're like, well, according to our scouts, Dale Talon was going to be the better player. So we're happy we got Dale Talon and not Gilbert Perreault. How did that work out for you? As Dr. Phil would say. How did Dale Talon work out for you compared to Gilbert Perreault? So it is really, really funny reading that. And then also there was an article about the Bruins, and they were saying how Wayne Cashman almost went to the WHA. And the Bruins were really trying to keep Cashman on Boston, but the WHA was talking to him, trying to woo him away. And then it was, some of the articles I was reading, I think it was in 72 when the WHA formed, and they became serious, because when they started taking players away, it became serious. and they were saying how the NHL, especially like the Blackhawks and Bobby Hull, they were gonna sue and they were gonna put an injunction so Hull couldn't play. And there was a couple other teams that were doing the same thing that lost players. It's like, no, we're gonna go to the court and they'll never play in the WHA because they're under contract with us. And it was really, boy, it was such a pissing contest. It really was. It was kind of interesting. And that's all stuff that I didn't know about as a kid. Again, how would I know that as a kid? I wouldn't. But only now that, years later, like I said, with the social media and the YouTube and the internet, you can go back and read all this stuff now and learn about it. And so it's been a blast reading the old hockey news and the YouTube videos and what happened to this team and that team. But the mystique is gone with a lot of the things that I remember as a kid and why I'm playing here on the table some of my games, because I know why now. I know why this happened. It's almost like when you find out that two people broke up and you have in your mind why they broke up, and then you realize here's why these two people broke up, and you're like, wow, that just kind of shatters my whole memory of why these people broke up and why they're not together anymore. And now I see the other side of this thing. And for the longest time I thought it was this way. And now it's like, well, now it's not that way anymore. So again, is it better just to kind of leave the past alone? Or do you want to learn about what really happened? And now you're like, do I really want to know this? Do I want to wreck any? Now, can I still play the Kansas City Scouts now? Can I still play the Golden Seals? Can I play the Buffalo Braves anymore on my channel? Knowing why that they were so bad. And it's not going to be fun beating them up anymore because I know why that they were bad. Before I didn't know. I just thought they were a bad team. They couldn't get their stuff together. That's not the case. That's not the case. And Randy says, which hockey team from the past would you have liked to have season tickets for? Oh, well, without a doubt, 69-70 Bruins or the 71-72 Bruins. Obviously, we never got to see or play live. We would go to the Boston Braves. I remember going to a couple of Boston Braves games because that was the AHL team. And so they played at the Garden. And so I remember going to the Garden to see the minor league teams play, but you couldn't get a ticket for the Orr games at all. Even into the 80s, after Orr, you had the Bork years and the Middleton years, and even those tickets were kind of hard to come by. It wasn't until the early 90s. That's when I met my wife. And I remember we would pick up Bruin tickets willy-nilly and go in and watch them play. I think it was like right after they went to the Cup and lost to Edmonton the second time that we were able to, start getting tickets. And then when they went to the Fleet Center, there was a lot more seats and they were just way more expensive. But I remember the first time I went to the Fleet Center, I was like, I'm too far away. The old Boston Garden, everything overhung. So if this was the rink, everything overhung, you know what I mean? Now, so your first row balcony seat, which used to almost be over the rink, is now out here. That's the first row balcony. So there's no more overhang. It's like, here's the lower bowl, and then here's the upper bowl. And first row balcony now is like a football stadium. You are way away. And it's like, yep, that's not fun. We're just too far away now. I could look down I get first row balcony one time. I could look down and see the bench. It was kind of neat. And even if you weren't in the first row balcony, even if you were in the 10th or 15th row, you still were pretty close to the action. And now it's so spread out. It's like, oh, I mean, the sight lines are great, but you're just so far away. Unbelievable. And Bears Den says the WFL was in the 70s. Yeah, that's what I thought. Gandalf, what do you say? I'm sure at the time it was really sensitive due to taking players in the NHL didn't have a strategy to defend it. Yeah, well, that's what it was. They didn't. I mean, because there was no other place to go. And the owners had the players, right like that, because I remember the story of Phil Esposito. He went in to ask for a raise with the Blackhawks, and the coach picked up the phone and pretended to talk to somebody and says, well, if he doesn't like it, he can go back to the minors because we have plenty of people looking to play. And then he's like, so Phil, what can I do for you? And Phil's like, nothing. It's again, because, the 6 teams back in the day, there was not a lot of spots to play. So you took what you could get and you try to negotiate. But if you push too hard, see, you go in the minors and you'll never be seen from again. That's kind of what Phyllis Rizzuto said. It says, if you got sent to the minors, you were done because you were under contract and they could just keep you there forever, keep you in the minor league prison system forever, Um, so making nice and everything is what you have to do to keep writing. Yeah, no, I get it. And Bearston, the IRS got involved. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe the IRS got involved with that whole football thing there, and that kind of made it kind of messy. But I still think sending in police to get the equipment back because they owed money, it's like, come on, So, but I did find, and I posted on Facebook, and I don't know if I can post here or not. I don't think I have the images, but going through the hockey news, I did find some games. I did. I found a couple of different games. One was a deck of cards game where it showed like a hockey net and like different cards, like the Ace of Spades, King of Diamonds, whatever it was, and it was $1. $1 will send you the instructions, and you can play a hockey game. And you would flip the cards and then look at the instructions to see what was happening. And the other one was called Power Play, and I think it was by a company called Game Crafter. They had a basketball game and a hockey game, and advertising the hockey news. And it was a company called Game Crafter that you could order these games from. And somebody commented on my hockey news video that he bought the game and it was terrible. And then a couple other people commented and said they still had it. So I'm going to try to see if I can get the instructions for those games, and maybe I can show them off here on the channel. PJ, what do you got going on here? Had no interest in the WFL, but loved the WHA despite the fact that they decimated the SEALs. Isn't that kind of weird that they would go after the SEALs? I mean, of all teams to pilfer from, I mean, wouldn't you rather have a fourth line guy from the Canadians or the Bruins or the Blackhawks than anybody on the SEALs? I mean, that's weird that you would go after a bottom team in the NHL. It's kind of weird. But then again, I guess playing devil's advocate, if you were on the worst team in the NHL, wouldn't you want to go to a better team? If that's the only way you can get on a better team is go to another league, I guess that's the way to do it. So I guess if you were on Montreal, Boston, Chicago, you didn't, unless it was just a strictly money thing, then I guess you'd want to stay in the NHL and win. And I did read, one of the articles I did read was about Cheevers, who was making $200,000 a year to play in the WHA, and he left because players weren't getting paid. And he said he was putting up his own money as loans to pay some of the people on the team. Then finally he just kind of gave up with it and went back to Boston and made a heck of a lot less money. But it's an interesting story. It really is. It really is. And Disco Demolition. He watched it again. He said it was good. I'm not sure if I knew about that. Was that roller derby? Is that what that is? Disco Demolition? I'm not sure about that. And yeah, Perot was great, but I still think it was funny. The article I read. We here in Vancouver are real happy with Dale Talon because our scouts say he's going to be the better player. So we're not missing Perot at all. And then it was interesting to see how who was moved. How they the teams got like Roger Crozier to play for them and where they came from. And it's fun reading those old articles about things. But the Mystique, like I said, now that I'm an adult and I can go back, and now that I know the history of things, I can go back and read what actually happened. I'm reading the hockey history books now. I'm watching videos on, baseball history and basketball history and hockey history. And I'm learning about like teams I didn't know about. I didn't know about the Braves. I didn't know about the Seattle Pilots, and what happened to them and when they come into the league, and I really can't wait till I go to the 72, 73 hockey news and start reading about the Flames and the Islanders, because I really don't know what was going on with that. I did hear that when they found out the WHA was serious, they were talking expansion. Oh, and by the way, all the expansion, like going back to 1970, right? According to the hockey news, when Buffalo and Vancouver come in, they're like, well, we're going to expand in 74, but we don't want to expand until then. But we're going to add a bunch of teams. And Seattle's on the top of our list. Seattle is mentioned so many times in the hockey news for an expansion team, right? And they talked about some other cities as well. And then somehow out of nowhere, Kansas City, Washington. It's like, what the heck was that? Where did that come from? But I did hear that in 72, 73, when they added the Islanders and the Atlanta Flames, that they did that in a huff because the WHA was putting teams in New York and they were putting teams somewhere else too. And they're like, we need to get into this market before the WHA. So they kind of, in a huff, rushed out Atlanta and the New York Islanders in 72, 73. At least that's the story that I heard. So I want to go back to the hockey news and see what they say about it. Again, I don't know how truthful they'll be, because again, it is the corporate writing, as we talked about here in the chat room. But I'm interested. Like I said, going back and reading some about that, see what they will say about it. And my name is Mine. Still disappointed about the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. Yeah, aren't we all? Aren't we all disappointed that Santa Claus is not real? Because I played that card a lot. When my mother's like, "Oh, I don't think I can get you that this year," says, "Well, maybe Santa will bring it." She just went, mm. So Santa would bring it, yeah, and yeah. And then that one day that ran out. It's like, so no Santa, no Santa. You get nothing, and you will like it. Oh, good times back then. Pete Jet says, there was a WHA version of the hockey news called the Hockey Spectator. Only lasted one season. He's got issues at Cosby's near Madison Square Garden. That's interesting. That's interesting. Nothing was better than the Ranger Bruin game of 78. Was that? I thought it was 79. Is that the one they went into the crowd? Because I thought that was 79 they went into the crowd, you know. And PJet says the Seals didn't even have radio coverage in 73, 74, and their practice rink was Olympic size, so you couldn't really work on plays. Yeah. No kidding, huh? Oh, PJ, by the way, I did see your comment about going back and reading the article in the Seals. What was it January 74? And yeah, it was all the people. Was that the one of the people that were going to the mind awareness thing or something like that? They were going to they had like these gurus coming in and were helping them clear their mind, and that way they were making less mistakes on the ice. Was that the article you're talking about? Because it's like, I guess you really couldn't write about anything on the ice, so they decided to write that all these players from the Seals were going to get their minds cleansed at this health place thing person. I don't know. Oh, too funny. And PJ says, I've been to games at Madison Square Garden next to a pillar and can only see half the ice. I was at some Bruins games where the air conditioning was hanging down to a point where you were looking under it and you couldn't see the other net. So I was at a lot of those games where there was a lot of bad sight lines for hockey games, but that was the one. If you were in the down below, okay, because again there was the overhang, and then there was all the things that hung below the overhang. So there's if you were in the loge, I think it was, which was down below. If you were at one of the higher rows in the loge on one side of the rink, sometimes you couldn't see the other net, and you see everyone leaning to the side when it went down that way. As it was back in the day. And D. Scott Howard comes by. Yep. Even Fenway Park, I think, has a couple of seats that have some pillars in the way. And Some Roads comes by. Thanks for coming by. Any good books on the Seals? Well, PJ will have to tell you about that. That's for sure. I imagine there is. I haven't read anything on the Seals. I read about the Scouts and I read about the WHA. So I have read a few of those books, but I haven't read anything about the Seals. And he says the WHA didn't go after the Seals. The Seals players fled the situation. Oh, okay. And WHA was happy to get any NHLers. Okay, yeah. So they left a bad team just to get out of a bad situation. I get it. So they were getting abused and they left the situation. I get it. Gandalf says, I got that card game and the instructions. I wore that out and kept all the stats. It was fun, but it wasn't team specific. They told you to pick who scored and who got assists. At 7-year-olds, that was great. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, see, I remember, like I said, the classifieds are fun. I wish some of those things were still active, like getting like the posters of the teams and the calendars, for $1 or $2. That would be great. You know what I mean? That just to go back in time and have some money and buy all that stuff to have for memorabilia. That was great. Was the Gamco hockey advertising the hockey news? I'm not sure. That's the only game he remembered having as a kid. The only one I saw was called Power Play. It was by a company called Game Crafter. And that's the one that I saw. And I posted a picture of that. Let me see if I can call that up. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can call that up and show you guys. If I go to my Digital to Dice Facebook post and see if I can call that up and show you. Here it is. Okay. So let's see if I can zoom this in here. I'll see if I can share this first of all. So I'm going to go to, all right, so here's this. So let me see if I can make this full screen layout. Okay, so that's the game that I saw. All right, so it's called Power Play Pro Hockey Table Game. A companion to our basketball game, Power Play uses the same unique system of play action cards and shot cards. Each pro team has its own special combination of play action cards to recreate the distinctive characteristics of that team. The players that shoot often in real life will shoot often in Power Play. Non-shooting defensemen will be just that. Their goal attempts will be few and far between. Each player is rated for goals, shots on goal, assists, penalties, defense, and face-offs. In addition, complete instructions are included for rating the players yourself. Interesting. If you wish to rate more old-time teams, rate the rookies that aren't included in the game, bring up the players from the minors, or perhaps create your own card sets in future years rather than buying them from us. You can do it. Included with the game, however, are many players already rated on individual cards and rosters for all the categories of abilities mentioned above. Player cards are provided for the top 13 players of each NHL team from the past season, 208 players in all. Complete rosters with ratings are provided for the remaining NHL players from last season. All WHA players from the past season, the top 30 pro hockey players of all time, and 14 great teams of the past. So, contents of Power Play, play action cards, shot cards, easy to use charts and rink. Complete instructions, play face-to-face or solitaire. Interesting. Information on how to convert statistics to player ratings, 200 player cards, yada, yada, yada. And so we got NHL, so we have 73, 74 teams, and 74, 75 Buffalo. Oh, and you even got Montreal from 67, 68. And then you got some WHA teams. Houston, Chicago, New England, Winnipeg, Quebec. Interesting. So that's what it was. And it was from a game called Gamecraft Company, Vernon, Texas. And it looks like it was that $8.95 plus $1 shipping for the Power Play game. So that that's what it was. So that was the hockey game there that I stumbled on. And there was one other one, and that was the deck of cards game I talked about. But that's what it was. So I don't know if that's the one that everybody was talking about or not, but and Rod's Tabletop Hoops comes by. Thanks for coming by. And he's got how WHA took a lot of guys from the Western Hockey League, left it in shambles. Yeah. It took a lot of guys from everywhere. You know what's neat about the old Hockey News magazines that I'm stumbling in? There was a lot of coverage of those leagues: Central League, Western League, American Hockey League. They got a lot of coverage in the Hockey News, and I get it that the Hockey News is not just NHL, but I was surprised to see how deep they went with coverage from some of these other leagues. It really was. Disco Demolition was a baseball event that went bad. Okay, that I was not aware of. He said, that was a doubleheader of White Sox in the 70s. Okay. How many Stanley Cups does Vancouver have? About as many as Buffalo, right? Although Buffalo did get there one time against Dallas, right? So I think they've each been there twice. I think Vancouver lost to the Islanders and then lost to they lost to the Islanders, Rangers, and Bruins. So they've been there 3 times. So Vancouver's been to the Cup 3 times. And Buffalo lost to the Flyers in the 70s and then the Stars. And I don't know if they've been back a 3rd time or not. That I don't know. But in that Jim Carrey movie, they won the cup in the Jim Carrey movie. That was kind of fun. And the Buffalo Sabres are the Stanley Cup champions. That was kind of funny. And yeah, 0-0 for Vancouver. 10-cent beer night was another bizarre baseball. Yeah. Yeah, the 70s was great. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was. I was watching that again, there's so many great things on YouTube, but that I don't even remember. It was the bottle night in Cleveland where they threw the glass bottles on the football field. Yeah, that was a great idea. Don't give out glass bottles, and it just again, the cans. You can't throw a can that far. I mean, if it's full you can, but I mean, if you want to waste the beer, but the bottles would fly and the referees were covering up. I was like, "Oh, it was bad. It was really bad." And PJ says, get Steve Curry's book on the seals. There are 2 anecdotes about me in there. Fantastic. I'll have to check that out. Steve Curry's book. Did they fill the stadium for those? Yeah. And it was the mind dynamics. That's what the article's about. Mind dynamics. So we're gonna have the seals, and we're gonna do some mind tricks with the seals to make them better. That's what it was. And no one came to the games except on 10-cent beer night. Free booze and massive crowds. It really went bad. That's too bad. Yeah, we're talking about Cleveland there. Some great YouTube videos on it. Very interesting stuff. Nothing like old timely baseball stories. Yep. Shea Stadium wasn't much better. Yep. I remember, like I say, when you go back and the whole Mystique thing we're talking about here, and you find out like why teams could only do certain things. I remember there was a video I saw. It might have been you ever seen that guy Jaguar, official Jaguar or something like that. There's somebody that Jaguar something that does a lot of football videos. It's really kind of neat. And I think he did one about Baltimore and how the Colts was sharing a stadium with the Orioles Memorial, and late in the season, or was it early in the season? The Orioles was still playing. I think it was Baltimore. The Orioles was still playing and wouldn't let Baltimore start. There was they had an agreement that the Colts wouldn't start playing home games until a certain time because of the Orioles, and they got into a big argument about it, and they almost had to cancel some games. And I think they actually played a game they weren't supposed to play because the Orioles wouldn't let them play. But some of these stories are fantastic, and like I say, who was it? I think it was in 1980, and I always get this wrong, but Chicago, I think they were playing the Islanders, and they were supposed to have a home game in the playoffs, but Led Zeppelin was playing in Chicago, and the owners were like, "Nope, we're not canceling Zeppelin for a hockey game." So Chicago had to play a home game in New York, and they ended up losing the game and losing the series. But stories like that are pretty incredible that just don't happen nowadays. So if you go back, like, boy, how did Chicago lose that series? Why didn't they play at home? Well, now you know. You know you read about this stuff, and the mystique is gone. It really is. Again, the mystique is gone with a lot of this stuff. And Demi used to say he used to go to a lot of hockey games at Long Island Arena when he was young. I went to one Long Island game back in, I don't know if it was '07 or '08 or something like that. We went down to Long Island, or maybe even '09. We were in Long Island, and late in the season, the Islanders were out of it, and they were playing the Flyers, and the guy we were down there working for took us to an Islanders game, and it was interesting. The was it the Long Island Coliseum? What's the name of the Long Island Coliseum? Oh boy, I'm drawing a blank here. Nassau Coliseum. Nassau Coliseum. It reminded me a lot of the Worcester Centrum here in central Massachusetts, where I used to see the Ice Cats play. It was very similar. It was just a little bit, maybe a tiny bit bigger than the Worcester Centrum. I remember going, it's like, holy crap! I was watching minor league teams play in an arena like this, but I only went there one time. And some road says he loves Shea and the Vet, two stadiums he grew up with. Yep, yep. But objectively speaking, yeah, they were kind of yucky. Yeah. Doug Soft Spy, thanks for coming by, Doug. And you remember when Sam Weish made that announcement about Cleveland? Oh, Weish, yeah. Yeah, please stop throwing bottles. We're better than that. We're not Cincinnati or something like that. I do. I love this hat. I love playing the Brewers. Like when I'm playing my 79, 80 seasons, whatever game I'm playing, I always like the Brewers. You know, Paul Molitor and who is the big hitter on the Brewers now? Stormin Gorman. Cecil Cooper played on the Brewers. So Sal Bando, I think, played on the Brewers. There was a lot of Brewers I liked back in the day. You know, and they had this cool logo. I thought that was so cool. I really did. My name is Bud. What you got going on here? There's one book called Go Golden Seals, The Tales of White Skates, Red Ink, and one of the most outlandish teams. You know, I might have read a book on the Seals back in the day. You know, I did. No, I did. And I interviewed the guy too. What am I thinking? I did. I read a book on the Seals. It was the most colorful team. And I even interviewed the guy. And we were Facebook friends for a while there. But I interviewed him when I did my hockey show, and we talked about the Seals. And he wrote all about the book. And I when I contacted him, I was like, I'm Dave Gardner, but I'm not Dave Gardner from the Seals. We just happen to have the same name. And so we got talking about that. And he come on the show. And I remember over in Studio A. I remember recording that conversation with him about his Seals book for an audio podcast. Yep. So I did read this book about the Seals. And what was neat is it talked about like the first part of the book was all about like the games and how they got going and Finley and then and then after that the second half of the book was all interviews with the players. So it was kind of like two books in one, you know, so to speak. So he actually talked to the players and got their quotes on. It was kind of neat, you know. I actually met Reggie Leach and Walt McKechnie. I had my Seal shirt on, and Walt McKechnie's like, I wore that shirt, you know. Walt McKechnie was pretty cool. I liked him. Brian comes by. Thanks for coming by here. And you like the pennants? Yeah, I put them up here tonight because I was kind of telling a story about teams that have moved and what happened to them. And it's amazing that the Racers were able to keep Gretzky. Now that's the other thing I got to go read about is what happened to that, because what I think I read is the hockey guy on YouTube is pretty good. I mean, he does a lot of modern stuff which I don't care about, but sometimes he'll go back in time and talk about teams and things. And I think he was talking about the merger. And if he's correct, and if I'm correct in interpreting what he said, is that when they had the merger with the four WHA teams coming over to the NHL, I guess all the players that were under contract. Oh no, how am I going to say the players that had come over from the NHL all had to go back to their NHL teams. That was part of the agreement, I think. So if the Indianapolis Racers, no, that's not good to go. Say Quebec Nordiques. If the Quebec Nordiques had whoever, Bobby Hull on their team, he would have to go back to Chicago. So when the WHA teams come over, they lost a lot of people because of that, and then they were only allowed to keep a couple of people as well. So they pretty much got torn apart when they come over here. And again, that's something I didn't know until I went down this rabbit hole. I didn't realize all what happened to all these teams and all these players. It's like, again, why were the Jets so bad? Why were the Nordiques so bad? Well, now we know. You know, that's why they were so bad. You know, again, the mystique is gone. And yeah, I should pull out that old Seals book. I do have it over here somewhere, that Seals book. Joshua says in 71-72, I just said Bees ticks were tough to get, but my dad was able to score 12-year-old me takes to a regular season thrashing of the Canucks in game 5 of the finals. Oh, that's nuts. You got to the finals. I went to one playoff game at the Garden. It was in 88, I think it was. 88, 89, that season there, I think it was. And it was the Washington game. It was game 2 against Washington, and the Bruins shut them out 4-0. And that was they got by Washington, and then they went to the finals that year. But I did get the one playoff game at the Boston Garden. I did. And he's playing Seals on an NHL 94 modded ROM on a Steam Deck. Oh, that's right. Were you the one sending me the pictures of that? I tried to dig in on that, some roads. I tried to dig in and figure out how to do that. Now, I don't know. I have a Sega Genesis. I have a Retron 5, so I have all the cartridges. I just don't know how I would how to do the ROMs. Like, do I just download the ROMs and play it? But how would I play it? Would I play it on the computer? Would I play it on the Retron? So I really would be interested in playing NHL 94 with those 70 seasons. I would need a tutorial though, because I went to look around for it and I found some forums, but I'm like, man, I just don't know if I have the time to really sit and go over all this. And there was no videos on it. So if someone had a video that said, hey, here's how if you want to play some old seasons on NHL 94, here's what you do, and here's what you need. But I would love to. But man, I did start to investigate that, and I'm like, boy, it's going to be a long time before I figure that out. So unless there's a shortcut or someone can really spell out how to do that, I'm kind of stuck. So I'll just have to enjoy you playing those games. But the screenshot you sent me was awesome, by the way. And P Jet's in the Steve Courier book, fantastic. And P Jet's told me that before. As you said, we talked about that one there. Bees won the cup 2 nights later in New York City. Yeah, yep. And Jeff says, I guess the hockey news was emulating the sporting news, which was all baseball at first. Yeah. I used to have the digest. In fact, I'm not going to go pull one out, but I think I have a couple of hockey digest over here from back in the day. And I think I found them at like flea markets and stuff. And I picked them up for $1 or $2 just to have. But the hockey digest was cool. It was like small, size of your hand. It was Reader's Digest, basically. And I had the baseball digest too. I didn't get any of the sporting news too much, but baseball digest was fun. Hockey digest was fun. Because again, back in the day, you know, no phones, no internet. So you waited for the hockey news to come in, and that's where you got your box scores. That's the only place to get your box scores was the hockey news. For hockey, anyway. I mean, you might get a Bruins one in the news. You know what they used to print in the newspaper back in the day? All right, I'll give it to you. Oh. You know what they used to do back in the days, at least in like the Boston papers here? They had the wrestling results. So when it was wrestling at the Boston Garden, it was like his last night's wrestling results. Chief J Strongbow defeats Tony Gurria, you know, and Andre the Giant beats, Greg Valentine. And they used to have wrestling results. And I used to read them too, because I couldn't always get there. But I know they're coming to the Boston Garden. But, if my dad didn't take us, we never went. And he took us a couple times, to his credit. But yeah, you would get wrestling results in the newspaper. That was kind of cool, I thought. It really was. And my name is Mud says both Buffalo and Vancouver has both won the cup in franchise hockey manager. Interesting. I like franchise hockey manager, but I mostly use that for a fantasy draft. So I can go back in time and like take all the teams from whatever 75 and just like disperse them all and pick my team. I enjoy that. I did play the WHA one year. I think I was New England, and I won the Avco Cup. I went all the way that year. I won the Avco Cup in one of the franchise hockey managers. That might have been like 6 or 7 or something like that. I did like 9. I've been playing 10 a little bit, but I haven't. That's when everything went to crap in my cellar here, and I didn't play for 6 or 8 weeks. So I got 10, and I've only played around a little bit with it. But 9 was fun. I really enjoyed 9. I thought 9 helped you along a little bit more. The one thing about the franchise hockey managers, like I keep saying, it's like you're in the airplane and you're looking at all the switches and the buttons, and you're like, what did that do? And what did that do? Did this do anything? Should I uncheck it? I had no clue what to do, how to make things better. And so I would just use it as a fun little fantasy draft thing. But Franchise Hockey Manager 9, for whatever reason, they gave you some more feedback, and they helped you with people's roles and stuff. And I felt as though, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt as though I was contributing to the game and I was contributing to the team, and I really enjoyed 9. And I need to jump in on 10 now. I wasn't too happy about the team harmony thing, because Derek Sanderson was causing problems on my team, and I traded him. And 6 months later, I still get frowny faces because people aren't getting along with Derek Sanderson. I'm like, Derek Sanderson hasn't been on the team in 3 months. Why is this a problem? I get rid of the problem player, and yet all my frowny faces are saying Derek Sanderson. I'm like, so I didn't care for that too much. But aside from that, I really did like it. French Hockey Manager 9. Oh, Denver is referring to the Long Island Arena in Comac, not the Nassau. The ECHL Long Island Ducks played there. Interesting. And my name is Monday Stab Hockey Digest as well. Yeah, I used to love that. P-Jet said he waited every week for that hockey news, read it cover to cover, including all the minor leagues. I did too. I read the whole thing. I remember like when I used to get that, subscriptions for Christmas and my birthday. It was the best thing ever. And it was tough in the summer because when I was going back and reading the old articles and reading the old things, they were week to week until the summer. And then it was like June, July, August was just one. And for a hockey guy, it's like, damn, I want that every week. Even in the summertime, I want it, even though there's nothing to write about, But yeah. And in the local sports section had results for Portland wrestling when it was still going. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I used to like that. The back in the day. I wonder if Chuck has got the newspapers.com. I wonder if any of the old Boston, go back and see when they wrestled in Boston. I wonder if I could get the newspaper results from that. That would be kind of fun to go back and look over, Randy says he's got a blizzard coming. It's snowing out where we are right now. We're supposed to get 6 inches, give or take. I'm kind of hoping we're going to be giving rather than taking. But yeah, we just have to maneuver all the cars so I can, get out the driveway and clean it out in the morning and the whole bit. But I'm glad it's coming on a Sunday, and I'm glad that it's not going to affect my work. And it's going to break out Hockey Blast for the first time. Yeah, cool. Let me know what you think, Randy. If you're playing hockey, let me know what you think. I should pull out a game later too. I might play a game. I probably won't stream it, but I might play it. The only thing is that we talk about Mystique, right? When I went back to playing Hockey Blast, I always thought it was a 20 to 30-minute game. Hockey Blast it's been taking me close to an hour to play Hockey Blast. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But I think I'd rather play like a Hockey Bones or an app of hockey. If I'm going to play an hour-long game, I think that gives you, it's more of a full game feel because you see every shot and every save and every penalty, whereas Hockey Blast does a lot of skipping ahead, so to speak. And again, if you get a lot of lulls, you can do a game in 25 minutes or so, but my games have been going close to an hour. So I'm like, man, as much as I'm enjoying the Hockey Blast, and it's a nice little change of pace, and I'm getting it now and I'm enjoying it now, if I'm going to be close to an hour, I'm going to pull out the Hockey Bones, which I was flying through the other day. After I played a couple of games of Hockey Bones, I had it on the table. I played game 2 of that Vancouver Buffalo series that I was playing, and that game was moving for me. I was like, all right, I'm back in the Hockey Bones thing here. So it took just a little bit longer than Hockey Blast. Although Hockey Bones is a lot more thinking. And it's when you're done a period of Hockey Bones, you got a headache. At least I do. And I got to take a break. Surprisingly, I played the whole game the other night here on the channel. And my name is Mud says he doesn't like the whole team harmony aspect. Yeah, I wish you could turn that off. That was kind of frustrating, And the roof leaked on the seats over at the Comac. Yeah. And a full day of Hockey Blast. Yeah, should be fun. And Debbie shoveled for the 5th time today. Ugh, that sucks. And my name, it says, I like the 24-second increments in Hockey Bones. Yeah, because it can go pretty quick. Like I say, I use the Excel helper because it rolls all the dice at once, and I have that for APA too, and it's fantastic. It just saves so much time because you don't have to pick up and roll. It's all there on the screen. So I like that for that because this gets tiring. It just does. And it used to take me forever to play a game of APA and stuff and Bones because I'm constantly rolling and rolling and rolling. And now when you get all the things on the screen, your rolls are right there, And but yeah, 24 seconds is not bad. It's 5 rolls a period, and sometimes it's quick. Like you roll the dice, it's like okay, no, it's an interception. This guy gets a puck, and now it's a face-off. Now you roll for the face-off, and now look at this guy does this, and it does a good job as far as keeping the game flowing. It really does. So I think it's 24 seconds is pretty good because with the hockey games, there's a fine line. Like what Strat is 40 seconds and App is 30 and Hockey Bones is 24. And I think Inside the Crease is 20 seconds. So the less amount of time means the more flips of a card or the more rolls you got to make because you're going in smaller chunks. But you tend to get more action in the smaller chunks, I think. because more things can happen. So again, if you're playing inside the crease and it's 20 seconds and strat's 40, you get two potential things happening for every one in the strat 40 seconds because you're playing 20 seconds at a time. And so more things can happen, more hockey like things can happen. So instead of being like, okay, we're going to get a shot on goal, well, all these other things happened that led up to the shot. Well, sometimes you see what led up to that shot in some of the other games that have a less space between plays. So it all depends what you like. It really does. Alan comes by and says, I used to joke that for all we knew, those late West Coast games might have been played with Stratomatic. Yeah, we never saw them. Yeah, wasn't there a mystique with that? There was a mystique with the West Coast games. And for me, and we've talked about this on the channel, and especially when I get with Replay Gamer, is the the National League was a mystique for me growing up as a kid. We didn't see anything National League because there was no crossover games. We got a hefty dose of Indians, Tigers, and Yankees because the Red Sox would play them, and you'd see all the Red Sox games, and you saw that American League East, and that's why I know the Orioles so well, and the Indians so well, and the Tigers so well when I play these things because I saw them so much as a kid. But the National League we didn't see unless we got the game of the week on Saturday afternoon at, was it 4 o'clock or something like that. We would see some National League teams, and we would see pitchers hitting, and that was so crazy to me that a pitcher would try to hit. And when you get your baseball cards and you're looking at them all, and you get like Giants and Padres and Astros, these are people I never saw, and I only learned them from the baseball cards. Or if they made the World Series or something, or this week in baseball, that was a huge deal because you got to see players and teams that we never saw here on the East Coast. And without cable TV, again, maybe Monday Night Baseball, or like I say, Saturday afternoon baseball, you would get a National League team, but it was few and far between. So the National League in baseball growing up for me was a mystique. The whole thing was a mystique because you didn't see them, and that's why I enjoy playing them sometimes now because I can go back. It's like these are guys I knew nothing about. I don't know anything about these teams, but it's fun playing them because I knew of them. But there was still a certain mystique because you didn't see National League games here in Boston all that much, or at least I don't remember seeing them. And P Jet said he missed the snow in Virginia, just a little bit of rain. I'm kind of hoping we get a lot of rain, and you ain't missing anything. Yeah. And Demi says he got burned out of Stone Cold Hockey. Stone Cold Hockey was fun. I still enjoy that. They have some WHA seasons too. I think I just picked those up. I like that game. I think that's a fun game because it's a quick game. It's a highlight game. You can get it done kind of quick. You get your goals and assists. I love the fatigue factor they have there, the hit meter that they have, and I keep forgetting what they call that there. But that's a fun game. It really is. Again, you don't get all your shots and your penalties because it's a highlight game, but that game is so fun. I enjoy taking that out and playing it. And from the very first time we played it, from the first period sucked. But the second period, third period was so good. I says, "Oh, we got ourselves a game here." So you can burn out on anything, but I do like the Stone Cold Hockey, and I do like how they've set some WHA, and I should probably play some more of that offline. That's a fun game to play. And Mud says I change lines after every 4 action sequence instead of 5 in Hockey Bones. It's closer to after shift actual shift lengths. Yeah, so you don't go the full 2 minutes. Well, that's the one thing about hockey games, and people always ask, like, what do you do for line changes? And nowadays the shifts are 40 seconds, 20, 30, 40 seconds tops. And I remember Phil Esposito saying 40 seconds, I was just getting warmed up. And I don't think many people play 2-minute shifts even back in the day, but you got to realize that if you want to play it like it's an actual game, it's going to be a lot more involved. I used to just change them once a period, or just once every 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it was. And like my rationale was, well, at the end of the game, everyone's going to get their minutes. It's just they're all going to be at the same time, So I wouldn't change the first line for a while, and then so it's a lot less line changes. At the end of the day, everyone's played the minutes that you want to play, but it saves time when the line changes. It doesn't feel like hockey, though. That's the thing when you play it like that. So I like to find the line when it comes to hockey games, especially with Hockey Bones and Appa and Strat to a certain degree, I guess. Not so much Hockey Blast because it tells you when to change the lines. But for myself, when I play Appa and Hockey Bones, I think the 2 minutes is good. I like the 2 minutes because it's not realistic, but you're not leaving them out there for 5 or 6 minutes just to get them their minutes, and you got a little bit of a hockey flow. I do like that. I do feel like if I go 2 minutes and then swap lines, that it does feel like a hockey game without, like I say, if I change every minute and I'm swapping those cards every minute, oh my god, the games would take forever, and I don't really need that. So just for myself, I'm okay with the 2 minutes. I think that's for a tabletop game. I think that's a good sweet spot is the 2 minutes because you get your changes. It feels like you're getting players coming and going during line changes, but it's not taking forever. And so at least that's where I am right now with some things. Now, let's go back to the chat room here. And Pete just says, once a year, there was a Rangers Seals game televised in Oakland starting at 11 p.m. I famously missed my high school hockey game because of that. It's in the Steve Currier book. So why would you miss a hockey game if it starts at 11 p.m.? That's I'm trying to follow that right there. I did one full team season product with Stone Cold because of the time cycle. So many games were 4-1 and 4-2. It got monotonous. I'm back in the chat room. Jeff says, sometimes I wonder if we have too much baseball, which probably sounds crazy. But I remember when we had ABC and NBC and the two superstations, GN and TBS. Yeah. And when cable come around and you get, ESPN and they had some games and GN, I saw a lot of Cubs games because WGN came with my cable package. And so I was able to watch some Cub games. In fact, I would watch every night, every Monday night, get out of work, and MacGyver would be on, like 5:30, whatever it was. And my buddy would stop by every night. We'd watch MacGyver on WGN. I was probably 89, 90, something like that. I think it was 90, 91. We would watch MacGyver on WGN. But yeah, so you get the Cubs and TBS was at the Braves games. So finally you could see some other games once cable come by. But I'm talking 70s. There was such a mystique about the National League, and I talk about it all the time, and you're probably sick of hearing about it. But it was kind of neat. In the early 70s, CBS carried an NHL game in a week on Saturdays, and the Bruins seemed to be on every week. Well, yeah, because they were playing the better teams. I just read the article on that too. In one of the old hockey news, they were talking about how I want to say it was early 70s, and they said that they wanted more money, so they offered CBS a chance to make a bid, and CBS bid too low, and they went to NBC. And they said this year the NHL is going to be on NBC. They're going to have Sunday games at 3:00 in the afternoon or 2:00 in the afternoon every week, and they're going to carry all the playoffs. And so they swapped over from CBS to NBC. And I remember that. I remember the NBC game of the week. I remember, taking a nap as a kid and waking up and be like, who's winning the game? It was always the Blackhawks, I felt. The game of the week was always Chicago back in the day. So you saw a lot of Bruins game. I remember a lot of Blackhawk games. And you like to have all your lines in a card sheet and just move the marker from line to line. Yeah, a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. Myself, the only reason I don't do that, and I see ID does that, and a few other people, so it's quicker to move if they're all in the sheets. Why I don't do that is when I play, I like to use the Hockey Bones line change, whereas the guy who has the puck stays out there and finishes the play. So I swap everybody else out, and if I had them all in sheets, then you can't. You have to change everybody all at once, which is fine too. But for me, it gives me when that guy stays out, once in a while I'll get a goal from that guy, and he'll get some assists from somebody different that's not on his line. And I think that's nice variety, and that's realistic. So now I can get this guy playing with some guys just for a few seconds, and they combined. Maybe he didn't get a chance to get off the ice, but he He's out there playing with guys he doesn't normally play with. They get a goal, and I think that's what makes it kind of fun. Is if we can get that guy dragging on the line change, so to speak. And so I don't do that. The other thing is that if there's a power play, I just like to flip the guy over. Just flip him over and he's done. And you guys have seen my broadcast, and that's just kind of how I enjoy it. And I can do a line change fairly quick. Just flip over the cards and I'm done. So for me, it's not that big of a deal. And PJet says his high school games were at 10, 11, or midnight. Holy cow, dude. Oh my gosh. All the rinks have public skating youth leagues in the prime time, so the adult games were early morning or late night. When I played high school, our JV games were in the afternoon all the time. And I played 1 year of varsity as backup goalie. And our games were always Wednesday night and Saturday night, like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. We never played anything late. The only time I ever played really late was when we rented the ice. We would rent, 10 to 12, 11 to 1 a.m., sometimes 12 to 2 a.m. I mean, these rinks were open real late. Nowadays, you don't see that. The rinks are closed up by 11:30 at night. I think the last game's like 10:15 to 11:15. But back in the day, that's when you get the ice. You'd have to rent it at midnight, play 12 to 2 a.m. And that's just when you got the ice. And we didn't think anything of it. Nowadays, if a guy plays at 9 o'clock, he's complaining it's too late. It's like, you guys have no idea what happened back in the day. When I played in adult leagues in the 90s, if we got an 8:30 game in the summer, we were overjoyed because the kids weren't playing in the summer. But then we go right back to the 10:30 games when the kids started playing. Which hockey game do I like the best? Oh boy, I can hear Juckett in my head right now. Juckett did a whole video on questions he doesn't like to answer. I would have to say I don't have a best game. And I know that sounds like a very safe answer. But the thing is quite honestly, I play a lot of different hockey games, and the ones you see here on the channel are the ones I play and the ones I enjoy playing, and I like them all for different reasons. Shootout was my first one. I really like Shootout. But Stone Cold Hockey is very similar to Shootout, but it does some things a little different, and sometimes I want that instead of what Shootout gives me. And then you got the other ones there, the Hockey Bones and Apple, they're really similar games. They really are. And I can play them both pretty in the same time frame. And they have a lot of the same seasons. Sometimes I like APA because they got the charts and I can go right to the charts and I'm done. And sometimes I like Hockey Bones because I like how they do things. And then this Strat, I don't play much Strat on the table because the cards are so big and you make a lot of decisions in Strat. And I'd rather play that on the PC than to sit there and say, do I want to penetrate? Do I want to intimidate? So I enjoyed Strat on the table back in the day, and I probably will circle back to it and play that again at some point and really get into it. But right now, I don't like to play the Strat so much. So that's probably on the back burner. Hockey Blast was way in the back burner until the Express come out. And then I said, let me give it another try. And it just works now. So I guess I'm ready for it now. So I do like to play hockey. So I rotate between Hockey Blast, Hockey Bones, and Apple Hockey if I want to play like a fuller play game. And then the quicker games, the Stone Cold and the Shootout. So I don't have a best. It's what I'm in the mood for at the time, if that makes any sense. And I'm the same way with baseball. I remember I pulled out payoff pitch 6 months ago and I hated it. And I put it away and I started playing Strat. Well, I pulled out Strat the other day and it drove me nuts and I put it away and I pulled out payoff pitch. So for me, it all depends what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes if you're playing a game and you get into the flow of that game, you want to play more of it just because it's on the table, it's set up, it's in your mind. You don't have to think about it. The problem is I bounce around from game to game to game, and I'll go to a game I haven't played for 6 months or a year, and then I got to relearn it. And it's like, oh man. So it's like I almost rather would just play a game that I don't have to relearn. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but yeah. And that's what happened with his fictional league. Okay. We already talked about that. And a lot of his games were late. Yeah. Yeah, it is really late. But when I was back in the day, I was probably like 19. And we would play hockey from 11 to 1. I was a goalie back then, and we get done. I don't even think we showered because I don't think the rinks had showers back then. And we'd go out to breakfast. We'd go to like IHOP, Denny's, and we'd get breakfast and whatever after the game. I wouldn't get home till 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I'd have to work at 7. And I remember getting home one day. It's like, well, I might as well just stay up. And I was like, nah, I'll crash. And I'd fall asleep for 2 hours and go to work, and I'd be tired at work, but I would get through it. I couldn't do that now. If I had 2 hours sleep and try to go to work, forget it. I'd be sick. But when you're 19, you can do that. And I'm not talking like drinking after either. I'm just talking just going out for breakfast, and just not getting any sleep. And I remember showing up. I was like, oh, and just eyes falling out of my head. But we made it work. And PJ says he did the 75 Flyers that actually score more and allowed fewer goals, but rarely had a blowout. Okay, and I think that was the Stone Cold game he's talking about. And it's a good that I didn't have access to every game when I was young. I never left the house. Alan, I have said that so many times. It's funny you say that. I used to say that about the video games. Hey, buddy, is it snowing out? My wife just let the dog out for a few minutes, trying to see if he had snow on him. But it's funny you bring that up, Alan. If I had the video games that were out today when I was a kid, even the Sega Genesis games, I was, what was I? So if that was 91, that would have made me 24. I think I was 24 years old. So I was out of high school, out of the house, working my own apartment. And when the Sega Genesis comes out, I mean, seriously, it would be like all night, all weekend. I remember getting up, if I didn't have to work on the weekend, I just would play that all day. And now with the Xbox and stuff, we can play online and have seasons. I always said to myself that if I was a kid and I had any access to these games that I have today, I would have dropped out of school because I would not have left my room. I would have played these games because as an adult, I enjoy them. I can only imagine as a kid, I would like them even more. So, yes, I'm glad that we didn't have access to a lot of things because, yeah, the internet, and I remember one time, I remember as a kid getting on the bus to go to school. It's a true story. And I was like, man, I'm on the bus going to school. I says, I wish there was a way that I could watch the highlights from last night's game on the bus going to school. And I remember I had like these little guys I would play with. And I was like, if there's a way that I could like have this box, like a shoe box or something, and I could just watch the guys act out the play from last night to get the highlights, you know? And I remember saying that all the time. Man, it'd be great to watch the highlights of the game on the bus because we never got the highlights. I would get up real early in the morning to put on the sports to watch like 15 seconds of hockey highlights that they would play once in a while. And it was mostly the Bruins. But once in a while, I'd be like, hey, last night in Buffalo, here's this goal here by, Rene Robert, and Buffalo wins. And like, oh, that was worth getting up 2 hours early for just to see that clip. But I remember saying that, boy, as a kid, it'd be great to sit on the bus and watch the highlights. And now guess what? You can do it. But yeah, if I was a kid and had access to internet and watching any hockey game available, I don't know how kids go to school nowadays because I would just be so glued to that. I would want to play all the time. So I'm kind of glad we had the Atari, but that still was nothing like today. I'm still amazed at the games that are produced today. I still am. I don't take that for granted whatsoever. And the only thing I would have liked though is a way to either watch or listen to the hockey games because even at night now I will put on a game at night or talk radio at night on my phone and stream that. And I used to like the West Coast games. I like the Sharks and the Kings. I used to fall asleep with that on a lot. So back in the day, I could get the Bruins and the Rangers, and once in a while I could get the Red Wings out of Detroit on my AM radio and listen to that. But nowadays it's all on the phone. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, back in the day, I wonder if I would ever made it to school. I really do. Marco comes by. And Marco, we're talking today about the Mystique. And you're a younger guy, but you might still deal with some of this here. And oh, you got the hockey subscription? Yeah, it's so good. I spent 3 hours last night in my living room and I had something on the TV. I don't know what I had on, and I was reading old hockey news articles. And even today at work, I went today at work, and luckily I didn't have to really get on the court, and I was just kind of running things, and I was reading some articles. It's addicting going back, and it's like, okay, I want to go back to 72 when the WHA started. I want to read what was being said. Okay, when the Bruins won the cup, what was said? When this guy got traded, what was said? What was the vibe going on? It's like going back into a time machine. So I've been enjoying that as well. But tonight we're talking about, as Jack comes by, and Jack, I see a question here. I'll answer that in 1 second, Jack, about Action PC Hockey. Tonight we're talking about the Mystique. And I recently, between the hockey news and Geddy Lee's book about Rush, which has made me cry. Okay. And then I stumbled on a couple of YouTube channels that talks about old defunct teams or bad teams, why they were bad and where they moved to. It, as we have the internet and social media and YouTube and all this, we have immediate access to information, and it's removing the mystique of a lot of the things I remember as a kid, especially from the 70s and 80s, before internet, before cable TV, before any of that. There was a mystique about things because you didn't see it as much. You only got a little taste of it, or you saw a picture, or you read an article about something, and you didn't get the whole thing because it wasn't talked about on the radio. And there was no chat rooms to go to, and there was no YouTube to chat with, and so there was a lot of mystery back in the day, especially with music and sports, with growing up with, and so that's what I was talking about tonight, how I peeled back the curtain to some of these things now that I've gone back and I'm reading magazines, I'm reading books, I'm watching videos, and I'm learning about things that happen. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, because I like playing my bad teams because they were bad. And now I found out why they're bad. And it's kind of not as fun anymore now that I know exactly what happened. It's kind of like when you find out what's in the sausage, you don't really want to eat the sausage anymore. So it's like, don't tell me what's in the sausage. Just cook it up, put it on my plate next to the eggs, and I'll have my breakfast. Sometimes it's just better that way. Sometimes you don't want to know how things are done. I hate to say it, but this sometimes not knowing is okay too. So that's what we're talking about tonight here. Yeah, let's see. Go back to the chat room here. But yes, Alan made the best point. It's a good thing I didn't have access to every game or video games or internet, because I wouldn't have left the house either. Exactly right. Jeff says he lived in Philly from 77 to 79, grew up a Phillies fan. Channel 17 would carry the Phillies games and the Flyers and the Sixers. He also got WOR and WPIX, so we got to see the Mets and the Yankees. Yeah, that would be the sweet spot, is down that Jersey, Philadelphia area when you get all that stuff there. So you get a good variety of New York and Philadelphia, New Jersey teams. So yeah, I can see how that would be a good area. And PJ did get to play at the Nassau Coliseum. That was kind of cool. I never played any place big. I've broadcasted at the new Boston Garden, and I broadcasted at the Lowell Arena, which is an AHL rink, and a lot of high school rinks. Oh, I also broadcasted at Yale a few years ago. We did a 3-game set down in Yale. That's a weird looking rink. It really is. I mean, we actually interviewed the guy that made the rink too. I didn't even know it. They were just throwing guys in there to talk to between periods. And some guy comes in and is like, "Hi, I'm supposed to talk to you." I'm like, and by this time it was our 3rd game. We had been there like 6 or 8 hours. We were tired. And I was like, "All right, let's talk." I go, "What do you want to talk about?" He goes, "I don't know. I designed the rink." I was like, "What do you mean you designed the rink?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm the guy that designed it and built it." I'm like, okay, we had the best interview with this guy. And he's like looking at us, we're looking at him. And next thing you know, it's like, it was fantastic. And I was got to look around the rink and talk about it. It's a good time. But so I did a few places, but I haven't skated in too many good places. I almost skated at Fenway one time. I was going to go referee a game for some friends, and then that fell through. So let me get back here to Jack, and let's talk about Action PC Hockey for a minute. Do I like it? Yeah, I do like it. I do like it. I found, though, that between that and the Strat PC Hockey game, that sometimes it felt like the first period just took forever. And especially with Action PC Hockey, where it's not really and well, the Strat PC hockey too. You don't roll any dice. You just kind of read the screen, and you make a couple of decisions as you do with Action PC hockey. So I found as I wasn't engaged as much as I'd like to be, and there's nothing wrong with Action PC hockey or Strat, but we'll talk about Action PC hockey. You can doll it up with graphics. I got all the rinks. It looks really nice. I can have all the colors the way I want it. I like the schedule and the scores. I like how you can get all the stats and you can get some highlights and things like that. So it does a lot of things really, really well. My only thing was I just felt as though, like I said, I would play a period and I would be good. I'd be done. I'd play one period and I just didn't want to play. It just felt like it took too long. Like for a game like that where I'm not rolling dice and I'm not looking at charts, all I'm really doing is pass or shoot and maybe change the lines. I wasn't doing enough to stay engaged for more than a period. That being said, the new version I just picked up, well, they have the cards now, and I've added the player photos, and I've done a few other things like that. It was a little bit more fun with some of the graphics and things they've added there. But as you see, I don't play it a ton on the channel. So if I don't play something a lot on the channel, it doesn't. It just means it's not like making the cut, so to speak. But I do like it. It's got a ton of seasons. It's fairly inexpensive. There's a lot of sales you can pick up with the season. So I like all the Action PC games. I like them all. I just don't play them a lot, especially right now where I'm really in a cards and dice mode. Okay. Whether it's on the PC or on the tabletop, I really like rolling the dice and figuring things out for myself. And that's one game that you don't. It's just you just shoot, and if it goes in, great. You have no idea why. You know, if you pass, does the pass go over there? Great. It is fun to practice my play-by-play, so I do like it for that. So I can kind of do a game and practice play-by-play, and it is nice not having to set up two cameras and set up my cards and do my line changes. And when playing cards and dice and streaming it is a big deal. It takes a long time to set it up and make it look right. So it is kind of fun just having everything on the computer and playing a game. But as far as like kicking back and play it, I don't play much of the Action PC games a lot. They're fun. Sometimes I get into a mode where I'll play a bunch at once. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question at all. But yeah, shootout hockey's fun because it's a faster play game. I love it. It just works for me. So I love shootout. It's inexpensive. I know he's not going to make any more seasons, but if he wants to sell it to me and show me how to make seasons, I'll make seasons. Hockey Unreal, good to see you, buddy. How are you doing? This is my Hockey Bones buddy from halfway across the world. In fact, he could be on the moon right now, for all I know. Hockey Unreal. I love Hockey Unreal. We don't get to talk as much as we used to anymore. I try to email him once in a while, but I'm back to the bones, by the way. So I'm pulling out the bones. They just released 8485. As soon as it goes to print the drive-through, I'm going to probably pick that up, but I might even pick up 6061. I was surprised to see Hockey Unreal is that they didn't have they don't have any WHA for Hockey Bones. I was kind of surprised at that. Even PDF versions, I was kind of surprised at that. Even App has got one WHA season. And hopefully that was a good answer. Like I say, that's just kind of what it was. Let's see. Shootout is one of his top 3, along with Hockey Blast and Inside the Crease for PJ. Yeah, it is. Interesting topics. Like, well, thanks. We try to talk about things that are going on in the community. Is what we try to do. And you know that New Year's Eve. I wish you were around New Year's Eve. We had a cacophony. That's a big word. A cacophony of people here on New Year's Eve. We had game developers, YouTube creators. We had just people in the community that play games, friends, family. It was. We need to do it again next New Year's Eve. In fact, we're talking about maybe like a summer version of that, where we have just like another whole community event and just having people on that we've met over the years and just have them on camera for a few minutes and just catch up with everybody. It was a blast. New Year's Eve, it was one of my favorite New Year's of all time. It really was. Just having all those people on and chatting with them. It was so fun. New Year's Eve. We still talk about how much fun New Year's Eve was. And people are still talking to us on email about it and Facebook about it. Let's see. He's gonna email and suggest, but maybe he'll leave it here. Okay. Evolution is a game and replay player gravitating to a different games. Fiction to straight replay, short projects, full seasons, or vice versa. Yeah, well, definitely evolving as a gamer, growing and evolving as a gamer is huge, because when I first started playing, I didn't know how any of this worked. And now that I've played a lot of games and I have an idea how this works and that works and the other thing works, um, I'm able to play more games now and go back to some games that I gave up on, because now I have a better overall idea on things, if that makes any sense. So sometimes the more games you play and the more you learn, the more you figure things out and how things work. And then sometimes it all makes sense. So, yeah, so evolving as a gamer, gravitating towards different games. Yeah, I think that's all kind of under the same umbrella as that, as growing as a gamer. And there's games that I swore off that I went back to. There's games I was going to throw away and sell that I didn't and I went back to. And there's games that I used to love that now I kind of fallen out of love with for some reason. And I don't know if it's because I'm playing a different game, something new, or if it's just what's going on at the moment. And a lot of it is personal too. If you're going through some bad things in your life, or if work's busy, or if the family's not doing well, or whatever it is, sometimes you're just not in the mood. You're just not in the mood for anything. You don't want to play anything. You don't want to do anything. You're just like, no, I'm all set. you know, and just everything just kind of drives you nuts. You don't want to play it. So I think that's what it can be. Oh yeah, it is always nice to be neutral. Well, the 20s were all right, like physically it was, but there's some things about the 20s that, yeah, I like to avoid. The man responsible for getting you into hockey, Bones. Yes, he is the man. Yeah. My name is Mud. I was watching Les Claypool's at his name. He was interviewing Geddy Lee on YouTube the other day. It was kind of funny. They used to tour together, I guess, and they had a good time on tour. So he was interviewing him about his book. So I was watching that on YouTube the other day. And yeah, mom wouldn't let you stay in the house. Get outside, stop watching the boob tube. Oh boy, I haven't called the boob tube in 40 years. But yeah, we used to be forced to go outside. My brother, especially, he was not into sports. My brother's a big guy. He was not into sports. It's like, man, if I had his size, but yeah, he didn't like to play hockey. He played a little bit of baseball. He was a good hitter. Wouldn't play football or anything. So we would force him to play sports with us, because otherwise he'd just sit inside all day. And he was just perfectly happy just sitting inside. And so, yeah, we were forced to go outside too. Nowadays it's like the helicopter parents, they hover over you. You can't go out. But back in the day, it's like, get out of the house. Don't come back till supper time. Okay. Now, in the wintertime, we'd take our skates and go down to the pond, and we'd skate all day at the pond. Go home for lunch, go back. It was great. It was really great. Good times back then. Some good times. Anyone that knows Primus likes that song. Yeah. I used to like Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. John Was a Fisherman. I think that was in Rock Band. I think John Was a Fisherman was in Rock Band. I think I played that in Rock Band on the PlayStation or the Xbox or something like that. Hockey player guys in a shoebox. Yeah. Well, I used to have a table. My grandfather made me a table, and I had the cake decoration hockey guys, and I would play, and I would practice my play-by-play with that, when I was a kid in the 70s. And then, when I get to be, 11, 12, 13 years old, I didn't do that anymore. But as a kid, that's all we had, you know. He used to like it when the weather sucked so bad he had to stay inside for recess, and you smash hockey blocks together and knock a block around the puck. Yep. Oh, we used to play so many things with hockey. I remember I used to take two chairs and face them out. Okay. And I take a Afghan or a blanket, go over the top, and I put something heavy on each side and would tighten it up. And you had an instant net. So picture taking two chairs, but face them out so the seats go that way. You put a blanket over the top and put weights on it. So now you have your blanket over the top going down the sides and then the back. It's an instant hockey net. And we would play all day with that, you know. Instant hockey net, two chairs and a blanket and just something to weight it down. The only thing we used to have to do is I used to have to take pillows and stuff them in underneath the chair. Otherwise, the shots would go, they wouldn't go in the net, but they would go like next to the post and stuff like that. So we'd have to block that off. But we played knee hockey all the time. Well, we play at my grandmother's house, and we broke all our wooden spoons. We all got our wooden spoons for Christmas because we broke them all playing hockey. It was such a good time. I think I had an organ one time, and it was shaped like a hockey net. And that was one of our nets one time too. We had so many things like that. It was fun. And pretend they were hockey players. I love doing that in elementary school. Yep, yep. Get an ice rink in your backyard. We never did lights and everything. There was about a mile from me over here where I live right now. That's where my dad was when I grew up. And across the street, the girl across the street, her father put in a big rink in their backyard. And we would go and skate on that once in a while. And that was a blast. Skating around out there on that. There really was. And he said that he likes that song for his drums alone. Ignorance is bliss. Yes, that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. Ignorance is bliss. Is that what it is? You know, when the mystique is gone, you know, and you know it's in the sausage and the curtain's pulled back, it can wreck some things. And that's kind of what happened to me. Is it wrecked some things? I went back and don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying my trip down memory lane and my history lessons, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying relearning the past, things that I wasn't aware of, things that I'm learning. But it is taking away some of the mystique of it. It's that's the only way I can put it. And I'm not going to stop because once you start, you can't stop and say, "Well, I don't want to wreck anything else," you know. But when I go to play some of these teams now, especially the hockey that I've learned about, or the Buffalo Braves, which I talked about, you know, earlier when I started this, and I know why they stink. It's going to be so hard to go back and play them because now I'm going to feel for these people. I'm going to feel for these teams. It's not going to be fun beating them up anymore because I know why they were so bad. So anyway, so anything before I wrap some things up here? I might go actually play something tonight. I don't know what I'm going to play. Let's see how bad the snow is. Might just go clear some snow away. But anything else you want to talk about before we wrap some things up here? I didn't realize we have such a good chat room here tonight on a topic such as this. But I thought it's just something I wanted to kind of get off my chest and see what everybody else thought. If you guys have the same kind of thing that you remember things when you were younger, and again, all related to the games that we play here, and your favorite teams and players and years, and then you go and you find out something about that, and it kind of just changes your whole mindset on how you looked at something, you know, and just learning about the 76 Buccaneers. I'll still play them from the time to time, but it's not what it was because I found out why. In the Buffalo Braves, I found out why. In the all the expansion teams in the 70s from the NHL, I know why that they got beat up by the original six teams quite a bit. Although I did find a new project in with the hockey news. I was reading it was 69-70, and the this one come out right after the Bruins beat Blackhawks. They swept the Blackhawks 4-0, and they were waiting to play the Blues or the Penguins. And the Blues had won a couple games, and the Penguins had just tied the series when this come out. And so the Bruins are waiting to play the winner of the Blues Penguins series. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to say what would happen if the Penguins pulled out the series instead of the 69 Blues. Okay. Now the Blues, excuse me, they beat the Bruins every time I play them. Every time I pull out 69-70, the Blues will beat the Bruins all the time. Just how it is. It's kind of frustrating. Then when I play 71-72, the Rangers beat the Bruins. So I try to go back to the cup winning years, and I can't get the Bruins to win the cup. But I think I might go back and pull out the Penguins and say, what would happen if the Penguins got to the Stanley Cup Finals? How would they work out against the Bruins? So that was going to be one project that I stumbled on. And they finally made the food reference. What food reference? What did I make for a food reference? I don't remember making a food reference. Oh, the sausage? So that's a saying. That's not a food reference, really. Jucket's the food guy. He is. And you agree with Action PC Hockey. It's an enjoyable game. Okay? Action PC Hockey is a fine game. It's fun. It's customizable. You can do anything with it. You know, it keeps all your stats. It's fantastic. But when you're in a cards and dice mood and you want to kind of see what happens and figure things out, then that's not the game to get because it does everything for you. Does it fine, and you can still make decisions in it. But again, you got to be ready for that. And lately, I haven't been in that mood. Maybe at some point I will, and I'll be like, head back into that, and because I've got some projects going with that as well. And even the baseball game is great. I like the baseball game, but I like the strat a little bit better because I could see the rolls of the dice and follow on the cards, and that's kind of where I am right now. And good to see Kenny come by here tonight. I've heard of the 4th Street games. I have not played any of them. I've seen them. I've watched a couple of videos on them, but I have not done anything with 4th Street football or hockey. Although I think I got the 4th Street hockey demo on the PC, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. So I need to spend more time with it. And Mud says, I'm beginning to feel the same way about franchise hockey, just a bunch of simming and not much engagement. It is, but it isn't because you control a lot of things, but I just don't know what works and what doesn't in franchise hockey. There's things you click on and things you don't click on, and sometimes it's like, did I help or did I hurt the team? That's the thing about that. But there's almost too much to do, you know. You don't know if they have internet on the moon yet. I bet they do. I bet they do. Um, there's a restaurant on the moon. The food's great, but there's no atmosphere. Sorry. It's always a joke I like. And yeah, Hockey Unreal is here. Good to see him. Doug, what do you got here? Are you going back to play any more golf games? I was so excited to get APA Golf. I thought that would be a fun game so I could just play a golfer and roll the dice and fall on. Because I really do like rolling dice and seeing where the shots go in golf. I just found that game to be, even in basic mode, so much going on. And I think I figured it out to a point, and I did have some fun with it. But that was a game that was really deep, and you really needed to and even if you thought you were playing it right, you probably weren't. And that's what I found about Apple Golf. And I got it. I haven't been back to it since that first week that I played around with it. I had some fun with it. I did enjoy it. I do really enjoy rolling the dice and seeing what happened on the shot because it's kind of a guessing game. I'm going to hit it to the left. You roll the dice. Well, if I hit it more to the left, I'm screwed. But if I hit it to the right, it kind of evens out. So when you hit a good shot by rolling the dice and guessing right, it was a very satisfying game. The only other golf game I really play is the History Maker Golf, which is an absolute blast. History Maker Golf is so good. It really is. I like that. I'm trying to think if there's any other golf games I play. I'm looking over here at my stack over here. Just some quick play golf games from time to time. Play of the Game Golf by Downey's kind of fun, but it's a quick play game. So as far as an action PC golf, don't get me started on that. As soon as I start enjoying that game, it does something that just sends me off. It really does. And John says, New Year's was fun. What New Year's was a blast, John. I enjoyed the chat room. I enjoyed the guests. New Year's Eve was fun. We definitely need to do that again. I was surprised at how many people were around on New Year's Eve, but that made it really good. And PJ says it's an interesting reaction. He don't get that often going back and reading hockey history. Well, for me, like I say, it's just everything was mysterious. It was a mystique. That's what we're talking about, the mystique. And so when I go and I read stuff, I'm like, oh, that's why. And it just casts a different light on everything. It goes from being the ignorance and bliss to knowing what happened, and it's like, oh, that's all. What the no, Demi, the Hockey Bones is, well, on the regular site, the PT game site, he sells all the PDF stuff. But if you go to Drive Through Cards, I think he might have links on there. Drive Through Cards is where you get the good cards, the fantastic looking cards. They're actual playing cards. And that's where I get all my stuff. I used to buy the PDF, but once I got the actual cards in from Drive Through Cards, it's like, oh man. I mean, they're a little bit more, well, they're a lot more expensive than PDFs, but boy, they are just such a good quality card. And you usually get everybody too. So I go to Drive Through Cards and just search Hockey Bones, and that's where I get all my seasons. I chipped away and got a bunch of them. So that's what I do with that. And Hockey Man says, "Hi, Josh." And you like the atmosphere joke? Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. He's heading to go out. It's mid Sunday over there. And he popped in on New Year's. Oh, he did stop by for New Year's. Yep. Yeah. We'll have to get you on next time so you can come by and say hi. He's got a board game at designers workshop in this afternoon and stand up comedy later. Boy, what a that's a different. That's kind of funny. And Glenn stops by as well. Yeah, Action PC golf is fun. It's just frustrating for me because I don't know. It's kind of like franchise hockey manager. I don't know how to fix anything. If I slice it, how do I fix it? I don't know. Franchise hockey manager. I just lost the game. How do I fix it? I don't know. But I plug around. I try to have some fun with it. New Year's chat was great. It really was. And the Colts just tied again. Oh, that's a big game too. I might go check that out. Let me check the score on that right now. Because that was like winner moves on, loser goes home, right? Oh, that's in the third, 14-14. Nice. I'll have to go check that out. I was watching the other game earlier, the Pittsburgh game. That was kind of fun. Jeff says he's played OTP and franchise hockey manager for years, but after watching our videos, he's interested in checking out some of the other games. Yeah, they're fun. The action PC games are fun, and the strat games are fun too. They're very different, and the winner makes the playoffs. Okay, but yeah, Jeff, they're different games. They really are, and that's the great thing. So we have all these different games to play. We can play, the OTP, or we can play Strat or Action PC or whatever. And there's so many games to play. You can play tabletop, you can play computer. So that's why it's fun. And there's no wrong game to play. There's no right game to play. Everything is just it's what you prefer. And I found myself not liking some games at first, and then liking them later, and then also liking games at first, and then not liking them later. And it all depends what I'm in the mood for. And me, I just it all depends what's going on here. It really does. What's going on with my life and in my head and what I feel like doing. And sometimes I like just to kick back and take the mouse and just play on the PC. And other times I want to, take out my 86 Red Sox and pay off pitch and have them lose. I can't get the 86 Red Sox to win nothing. Nothing. No matter what game I play, they stink. But it's still fun to play. It really is. And Sports Time Machine comes by. I've been watching some of his videos that he's been playing. He plays some good things too. I think he's been playing some payoff pitch as well. And so I like to watch other people play the games I play, just kind of make sure I'm playing correctly. If someone's playing something a little differently that might help me with my game, or maybe they got a little homebrew that they use. It's kind of fun. So like, okay, that's kind of fun. I should try that. And Demi says the Mets 86. Yeah, that was the year of the Mets. That's for sure. And Demi's been playing 86 Mets season ticket baseball. Season ticket's fun too. That's fun. The only thing is that there's a lot going on with season ticket. It's like you roll the dice and you can overthrow, and you know guys are automatically out sometimes, and so there's a lot to do with that game. But I enjoy it. I try to incorporate a handful of the optional rules to make it fun. That game moves pretty well. I really like season ticket. And that's a great thing. Is there's so many games I play right now that I enjoy. It's like I can't make up my mind. Sometimes I pull out season tickets. Sometimes it's payoff pitch. Or I almost pulled out APA tonight. I still might later on. I'm playing my 78 Red Sox. I'm trying to play every game of that with APA. I think I'm like 8 or 10 games into it. It's just kind of fun. APA plays quick, so I can play like 2 games back to back. And Glenn says the same thing. He goes, I like seeing how others play the games. Yeah, I do. Sometimes it's just you pick something up. It's like, I've been playing this wrong all these years, or I'm playing it right, but this is how this guy does it, and that's kind of fun. So I do like watching other people play. It gives me ideas, and it keeps me engaged. Again, when someone's playing a game you really enjoy playing, it's fun to watch them play it. Like ID will pull out Apple Hockey sometimes, and I'll watch that. Or somebody else will pull out payoff pitch, and I'll watch that because those are games I enjoy playing, and I can kind of follow along because I know how it's playing. Pocket Pen Run, yeah. The new one, however, they had a tough rollout. I think they've kind of worked out some of the bugs, but they expanded on the game, And a couple of things were just kind of confusing, especially with the software. But I think they fixed that now, and we'll get them back on the show and talk about that. But Pocket Pennant Run 2 was a nice bump up from Pocket Pennant 1, the original. So I really enjoyed the second version of that. I really, really do like that. And the third one, they try to incorporate some new things that I'm still quite haven't figured out yet. But the Pocket Pen and Run 2 was very, very enjoyable. I'm kind of hoping I'm going to like 3 once it's the software gets squared away and the things you need to print out are there. They added the ability to print player cards, which is kind of neat. So I'm interested to see how that goes once that gets squared away. So good time there. All right. So any other final questions here before we wrap up here? I'm going to go finish watching some of the hockey game and the football game. Maybe I'll put the football game on and go back to read my hockey news. I need to get back to I love some of the articles. They're great. Again, now we didn't get Gilbert Perreault, but that's okay because we have Dale Talon and he's gonna be our guy. How'd that work out? Not very well for the Canucks, let me tell you. Oh well. But anyway, well, appreciate it, guys. I want to thank everybody for coming by tonight here. As I just talking about when the mystique is gone. And there's a lot of things now that I'll look at differently when I go to play my games. And I'm not saying I regret reading the hockey news or regret watching these YouTube videos because it is kind of fun to figure out why these teams moved or why these teams are so bad. And it just kind of fills in some holes in my knowledge of history from what I remember as a kid or I remember as an adult about things. Like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? So it's kind of fun doing that. But at the same time, it is kind of sad that some of my thoughts on something or how I looked at something have been shattered. Now that I found out the real story about something, it's like, oh. So it just kind of shatters the illusion, I guess, is what you have, is what it's called, the illusion. So, but anyway. So again, thanks everybody for coming by tonight. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody that came by on New Year's. That was fun. And I think we got a new show out this week. Everything's been kind of a jumble since the holidays, but I think we recorded a show this week, and hopefully we'll have another one out. Probably like the middle of next week. I'm kind of hoping. Well, actually, I got to work all next week. Oh, next week's going to be messy, so it could be the end of next week when we get a new show out for Digital to Dice. But anyway, all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. You guys enjoy your weekend. I get snow coming my way, so I got to go out and get ready to shovel the snow and things like that. But hopefully, I'll play some games here into the wee hours of the night. So maybe somebody will be on YouTube tonight, and I'll watch them play some games while I play some of my own and keep me entertained while I do that. But thanks so much. I just wanted to talk about that when the mystique is gone. How I'm kind of looking at some things a little bit different. And I'm hoping things aren't ruined. But anyway, hey, I'm Dave, and we'll talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.